The Galactic Council had seen many species in its 10,000-year history, but none quite like the humans. When the USS Endeavour docked at Station Kepler 442, the alien dignitaries gathered to witness what they considered an anomaly, a species that had somehow survived despite possessing none of the natural advantages evolution typically granted to apex predators. Alice Chen stepped off the transport with her usual calm demeanor, her dark eyes scanning the assembled crowd of insectoid Vrix, the gaseous Helion, and the reptilian Scarix delegation. As the human ambassador's chief xenobiologist, she'd grown accustomed to the stares. What she hadn't anticipated was the emergency. "Dr. Chen," chittered Ambassador Vrixthal, his mandibles clicking with distress. "We require your unique expertise. There has been an incident." The incident, as it turned out, involved a Scarix hatchling named Casper, so nicknamed by the station's human crew because of his pale, almost translucent scales. The young Scarix had been found orphaned in a derelict ship, the sole survivor of a plague that had wiped out his colony vessel. The station's xenobiologist had tried everything to calm the traumatized hatchling, but Casper had proven violent, lashing out with claws and teeth at anyone who approached. "He's feral," declared the Scarix elder Krizak, his scarred hide testament to countless battles. "The young one has been broken by trauma. Our way is clear. He must be euthanized before he becomes a danger to himself and others." Alice felt her jaw tighten. "You want to kill a child because he's scared?" "He is a monster," Krizak hissed. "He has injured 3 handlers. He refuses sustenance. He will not sleep. In our culture, such damaged young do not survive, nor should they." "It is mercy." "Let me try," Alice said quietly. The assembled aliens exchanged glances, the equivalent of concerned murmurs in their various forms of communication. The Vrix ambassador's antennae drooped. "Dr. Chen, I must advise against this. The hatchling is highly aggressive. Your species is fragile. We cannot guarantee your safety." Alice smiled without humor. "My species walked out of the African savanna with nothing but rocks and attitude. We turned wolves into dogs and made the atom split. I think I can handle a scared kid." They led her to the containment unit, a sterile white room with reinforced walls scored with claw marks. Through the transparent barrier, she could see Casper huddled in the corner, his small body trembling, eyes wild with fear and exhaustion. He couldn't have been more than the Scarix equivalent of a 5-year-old human child. Alice didn't ask permission. She simply opened the door and walked in. The aliens outside erupted in protest, but she'd already sealed herself inside. Casper's head snapped up, his mouth opening to reveal rows of needle-sharp teeth. He hissed, a sound that would have sent most species scrambling for cover. Alice sat down on the floor, cross-legged, about 10 feet away from him. She didn't make eye contact, a trick she'd learned from working with traumatized animals back on Earth. Instead, she pulled out a small music player and set it between them. Soft piano music filled the room, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Casper's hissing faltered, his head tilted, reptilian eyes blinking in confusion. "I know you're scared," Alice said softly, still not looking directly at him. "I know everything is wrong and nothing makes sense. I know you miss your family." Her voice caught slightly. "I lost my parents when I was young too. Different circumstances, but the fear is the same." For 3 hours she sat there. She hummed along to the music. She told him stories about Earth, about the ocean and mountains, about dogs and cats, and how humans had this strange tendency to adopt anything that would let them. Slowly, incrementally, Casper's trembling eased. His defensive posture relaxed. When Alice finally pulled out a ration bar and began eating it herself, Casper's nostrils flared. She broke off a piece and slid it across the floor. Not too close, but within reach. It took another 20 minutes, but eventually, Casper crept forward and snatched the food. Outside the containment unit, the assembled aliens watched in stunned silence as the monster hatchling gradually moved closer to the fragile human. By hour 6, Casper was sitting just 3 feet away, no longer hissing, his eyes drooping with the exhaustion he'd been fighting for days. "Impossible," Krizak breathed. "The human should be dead." Ambassador Vrixthal's antennae quivered with something like wonder. "Perhaps. We have been thinking about this incorrectly." Inside the room, Alice noticed Casper swaying, fighting sleep. On impulse, she began to sing. A lullaby her grandmother had sung to her in Mandarin, the words flowing soft and gentle. Casper's eyes widened, then slowly began to close. He fought it, jerking awake twice, but the combination of exhaustion, full stomach, and Alice's calm presence finally won. He slumped forward, his head coming to rest against Alice's leg. She froze, barely breathing, then slowly, carefully, she placed her hand on his head, stroking the smooth scales. Casper sighed, a sound of such profound relief that even the aliens outside felt it, and fell into a deep sleep. "Dr. Chen," the comm crackled softly, "you should exit now. You've done enough." Alice looked down at the sleeping hatchling, at this child the galaxy had deemed a monster, and shook her head. "No, he's had enough people leave him. I'll stay," and she did. For the next 3 days, Alice stayed in that room. She slept sitting up with Casper curled against her, his claws carefully retracted. When he woke, panicked, she was there. When he needed food, she fed him. When he cried, a keening sound that broke her heart, she held him and hummed until he calmed. By the 4th day, Casper would follow her around the room, his tail occasionally wrapping around her ankle as if checking she was still there. By the 7th day, he was eating regularly, sleeping through the night, and showing signs of the playful curiosity natural to young Scarix. Kurzak stood outside the observation window, his expression unreadable. "I do not understand," he admitted finally. "Why would she risk herself for young that is not even her species?" Ambassador Vrixthal's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. "Because she is human. And humans, we are learning, have a peculiar talent for looking at the broken things of the universe and declaring, 'I can fix that,' even when logic says they shouldn't try, even when it might cost them everything." Inside the room, Casper had fallen asleep again, but this time he'd climbed into Alice's lap, his head tucked under her chin. Her arms were wrapped around him protectively, and she too had dozed off, exhausted but content. The image was transmitted throughout the station, then the sector, then across the galactic network. A human, soft-skinned, clawless, fangless, cradling a monster that had terrified trained handlers. It became a symbol, a representation of what made humanity simultaneously baffling and extraordinary to the rest of the galaxy. They called the hatchling a monster, but in the end it was humanity's monstrous compassion, their unreasonable willingness to care that proved truly fearsome. And Casper? He never slept without Alice again. Not because he was dependent or damaged, but because he'd learned what the galaxy was slowly discovering, that humans were the universe's most persistent guardians, and once they decided you were worth saving, nothing in the cosmos could make them let go